And welcome back, everybody. Another Monday, another respect. Hope you all had a great week. Hope you all had a very, very safe and pleasant week. And we've got a very interesting roundtable tonight, a very interesting show. You know that child trafficking is very, very, very near and dear to my heart. And you've heard me say a whole bunch of times that what we're going through is not a local issue. What we're going through is a global issue. And it truly is an initiative that takes the entire world and the entire population of the world to try and squelch forever. And so because of that, I have a very, very special group on tonight, of which technically I am the only American, purposely, because we need to reveal what's going on all over the world. Stop laughing, you. And so without further ado, I want to bring forward my special guests tonight. We have got the Maestro, and we have got from Belgium, I do believe.
Yes, Belgium originally.
David Sorensen, welcome back. And Ster, also from Norway, I believe, correct?
No, Netherlands.
Oh, Netherlands. Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. So the whole idea is to present to everybody just exactly what's going on and how bad it truly is globally, and let people realize that this isn't just something happening here. Something has been going on since the dawn of time, but it's absolutely not just a US problem. And in many areas, it's much, much worse than it is here in the US. So let's just go around. Ella, since you are the newbie here, first time on Respect, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the things that you've done in regard to child trafficking?
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Mark, and nice to see you both again, Stephen and David. Yeah, I'm an investigative journalist. I write under the pseudonym Ster. And my awakening process started in 2013. I delved into numerous topics, but one of the topics that really drew my attention was satanic ritual abuse, organized abuse. And since then, I've talked to dozens and dozens of survivors of all sorts of abuse, but also the satanic ritual abuse. And my website is lster.nl. I write primarily in Dutch. I also publish in the Dutch newspaper De Andere Krant, which probably translates into The Other Times. And it's actually the only independent newspaper that is opposing the globalist European World Economic Forum agenda. And we've written about Pizzagate and Epstein before it was trendy, and satanic ritual abuse, and how the politicians and the mainstream media used every excuse in their book to not investigate it and not report on it. And last year, I collaborated in a documentary called Beneath the Surface. It was a Dutch initiative initiated by Heidi Gundel, and she had planned to do an event, and she had invited Kathy O'Brien to come over as the lead speaker. But she got serious threats, and her trip was canceled. And then we were in touch with Iconic in the UK, and there were already some connections there, and they offered to do the production and turn it into a script of a documentary. So that was launched in January this year. So there's a lot of initiatives over on this side of the pond, and still a lot of work to be done to make a good change. Yeah,
that's for sure. That is for sure.
Yeah,
you and I have had numerous conversations about this privately and on the air, And this is, I know you've had a lot of involvement with it. I've spoke when we've been on with Patriot Underground, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've discussed it there. When you're dealing, especially in Europe right now, because we've heard a lot about the infiltration, the open border policies that they have there, and a lot of the people coming in are serious child abusers, serious rapists, et cetera, but serious child abusers. What's it like over there dealing with what's going on?
Who you asking the question to?
Stephen, Maestro.
Oh, it's pissing a lot of people off, but in the Netherlands they're not really standing up to this at the moment. I've got the impression that in the Netherlands, especially, that people are too settled. They're not really, getting aggravated. And as you know yourself, Mark, and also David and Ella, we know that child sex trafficking and pedophilia is deeply integrated in the Netherlands. It goes back a long time. But if we go back to the Kalergi plan in 1925, Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi, he wrote the Praktischer Idealismus, and it's a book that describes that Europe has to be, it has to be, what do you call it? From within, it has to be destroyed by getting migrants in, and also we read about migrants. Also in the Netherlands and in England as well, and Ireland, that the raping and the pillaging and the plundering and all the stuff. But people, it's a minority at this moment, that people that are standing up, and they're giving a lot of pushback. But it's a question of time. You can't force people to wake up. They'll have to experience it personally, in a certain sense. And you can sense that some countries are waking up quicker to this than others, but it's a worldwide problem, as you know, and it takes a lot of courage to talk about it, like we are doing now, of course. And I don't think we have a clue how bad this is for a lot of people, because the last 2 weeks we've heard they're eating babies. I mean, a year ago, if you'd talked about they're eating babies, people would have declared you complete wacko, but it's seeping out to the mainstream media now, and the tabloids. So they're doing it in a perfect way. I think the white hats, and they're controlling it, because if you dump it on the table, people are gonna just leave it by the wayside and not digest it. So it's got to seep out, drip. And the Netherlands, it's especially in the big cities, it's bad. I mean, you can't compare it, I don't think, with places like London or Birmingham or something like that, or Paris or Germany even. We know what Merkel said a few years back. Wir schaffen das, like Barack Obama said, we can, but it's all done by design, of course, and the people will have to stand up, because the governments aren't going to do it. So I don't think we've not seen anything yet, Mark, to answer your question. So yeah.
It's a rough situation, and a lot of it does have to do with the immigration, but this has been around since the beginning of time.
Oh.
Now, David, you were actually the inspiration for doing this particular roundtable, because I listened to one of your episodes that I heard on someone else's podcast dealing with child trafficking, and it was very insightful and very direct and to the point. So give us, why you have such strong feelings in regard to this.
Yeah, well, I think everyone who has a heart and who learns about it will have strong feelings about it. And that's what Q said, that this topic will unite humanity. And so I find it pretty impressive how President Trump and the White Hats, the Q operation, for the past years have been systematically dismantling a lot of the child trafficking operations already worldwide. I believe that this was also part of what Russia was doing in Ukraine, that they have ended operations that, as Stephen says, are so much more horrendous than we can imagine. I think that the level of evil that was going on in the world was something that none of us would be able to know about, to see, and then walk away unharmed. I think it's really traumatizing. I cried for several weeks when I obeyed the plea from God that I felt to look into it. And I could have said, no, I don't want to look into it because it's too confronting. But I said, okay, I will. And then it just emotionally wrecked me. And what I have revealed about it is only like 5% of what we know. I think that goes for all of us. Most of what we know we cannot tell to other people because they simply would not believe it. I have a whole file on my computer with incredible documentation about the cannibalism, about restaurants run by the elites, where they slaughter young adults that they simply pick from the street. They just kidnap them from the street, and then they chop them up and serve them to, even Prince Charles has apparently or has allegedly been in that restaurant. It was a restaurant for Hollywood celebrities, and but I never published any of that because I was like, first of all, what's the use of publishing it if nobody's going to believe it anyway? So I focused on things that could have more impact, and I didn't want to use it as a sensation story to get attention. I wanted, it's too horrific. It's too horrific to do that. So, but I must say that I am very, very encouraged to see what is going on. And I mean, my main stance in all of this has always been from the very beginning, a vision of hope. I don't believe that any one of us was called to be part of this battle, knowing that we would lose it. I was impressed when I read the story of Ella, where she as a child had, I believe you had dreams, right? They were calling you to join an army of resistance.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, more or less, yeah, something along those lines. That didn't happen because we were all doomed. I believe that we were all enlisted in this great worldwide army because there was a turnaround coming. And I see that turnaround happening right now with, what Trump is doing with arresting some of the top child traffickers that are known as drug lords, but they do just as much child trafficking. It's the actions that are being taken. And I recently, we'll have to see what happens. But what was interesting about Europe, about the future and the liberation of Europe, a couple of days ago, I told my wife that I had a strong feeling that Russia would liberate Europe, that Russia would be used to literally take out every deep stater, every deep state agent, every cabal member, and that the war that is being orchestrated now would be the cover-up to do that. Personally, I believe that Europe has been submitted already for a large part to President Trump. I was very amazed to see Ursula von der Leyen and Mark Rutte, when they sat in the office of President Trump, they were so uncomfortable. They looked so totally and utterly powerless and defeated. And you know what happened after Bill Gates visited President Trump in his Oval Office? He came out, he was submitted. and he turned around on climate change and started saying, no, there's no climate crisis after all, which was an indescribably massive deal because Bill Gates was the #1 voice in the whole world to push the climate change hoax as the excuse for the Great Reset after the pandemics had failed. Now it would be climate change. And so that was completely cancelled. So, I believe that Mark Rutte and Ursula von der Leyen, that they are now submitted as well, and that there will be a war between Europe and Russia. A lot of this is based not on actual top secret insider information, but more on deduction. That's all that most of us can do. Sometimes we get some information from an insider, but this is what I deduct from everything I'm seeing, that it's apparent that there has been taken at least a level of control over Europe. But what Russia will do, so I told my wife, I believe that the war between Europe and Russia, that will probably be in the next year or 2 years max, probably next year. Yeah, we'll have to see when exactly, but that it will be used to liberate Europe. And I believe that Europe will, I don't know exactly what will happen, but behind the scenes, Europe will become under the authority of the Christian nation of Russia. And I say the Christian nation of Russia because Russia was historically the most Orthodox Christian nation in the whole world. And it was seized by the Jews, who then turned it into a communist nation. But it was liberated. Putin has been replaced, and Putin has been the #1 voice in the whole world for the past years to call world leaders back to Jesus Christ and to openly speak out against the pedophilia and the cannibalism and the Satanism of the Western elites. So I am very excited about the future. I know it can become very intense in Europe, in a few months or in a year, or I don't know when exactly. I don't think it will be more than 3 years from now where it will start. It can be very intense depending on where you live, but it will lead to the complete removal of all these child traffickers, all these deep state agents all over Europe. I believe that we are going to witness a liberation in the history of humanity that is epic and unprecedented.
Well, it's funny the direction that you went with that, because I actually met with some friends earlier and we were discussing some of this. And a lot of people outside the movement don't actually understand the group working together globally to make all of this happen. They think, Russia's our enemy, China's our enemy, this and that and the other, and they don't understand the group of President Trump and Putin and Xi Jinping and Modi and this and that and the other. And when you look at it pragmatically and you see us really dealing with North and South America, we're taking care of Canada, we're taking care of what's going on in Mexico, we're taking care of what's going on in South America. You've got Russia dealing with what's going on in Europe.
Yeah.
Asia is China.
Yeah.
And then, with going back to saving Israel for last, and this is exactly the way that I put it to them, all of a sudden now, with what we did in Iran, the boogeyman is gone. If the boogeyman is gone, it kind of halts that Israeli agenda of the greater Israel and pushing forward. Once the boogeyman is gone and the funding is gone for Hamas, even though that was the Mossad, and ISIS, that was the Mossad, and all of the rest of them, the alleged funding is gone, the violence should stop. Where does that leave them?
Yeah.
So while the Middle East has always been a huge, huge hub for child trafficking.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia was one of the big three.
Well, Saudi Arabia, the Arab world, quote unquote, hate to put it that way, but the Arab world for centuries,
Yeah,
trafficking has
Yeah.
always been, because when you're dealing in that kind of a realm of multiple wives, et cetera, there's no real respect for age or sex or anything else. But now that that's happened, I'm curious to see exactly how that's going to lead toward this whole scenario.
yeah. And, there's one thing I forgot to say. I lost track of my own train of thought, but so I told my wife a couple of days ago that I really had this feeling that Russia would liberate Europe. And then the next day, I got an email from somebody who is connected to a person who works with President Trump, and who has, he's a guy who apparently has more direct insider information. And so this man said, he emailed me that Russia will liberate Europe. And everything I had told my wife was suddenly confirmed by a source that is much closer to the heat than myself. So, it's interesting that sometimes just by observing from a distance and not being sucked down by all the negativity, but just keeping your focus on the bigger plan of deliverance, then if I know that Russia is working with America, is part of the global confederation to liberate humanity from the Satanists, why then would they attack Europe? Why would they allow such a war? They can easily prevent it. And the only logical outcome I can think of is that it is the perfect cover to go into all of Europe and start taking out everything from the cabal under the cover of war. And it is war. It is full-blown war. But it's not a war like the public will think. It's a much deeper war. And so I believe that in a couple of years, the European Union will no longer exist. NATO will no longer exist. United Nations will no longer exist. The World Economic Forum will either be reformed or will also no longer exist. I see that all their plans have failed. When the pandemic failed, everything failed. Nothing could succeed anymore once the pandemic failed, because the people had woken up, thanks to people like you guys and thousands worldwide who have been exposing. And the white hats stood up. And, so I believe that we are witnessing the great deliverance of God's creation.
We can only hope that. But Maestro, when you look at this and what's going on there, especially now in the Middle East and moving forward with it, what do you see happening there? And not just now in the realm of child trafficking, but moving forward with this. We all know that we're watching really the replay of the war. All this has happened already, but moving forward with where we are and where we could be, and people's awakening to what's been going on.
Well, people will have to stand up, of course. People have to do the job. We can't expect Trump to do it all. And to a certain sense, Trump will have to distance himself, because if he interferes with everything in all these countries, he will get a lot of blame, because there's a lot of hatred still for Trump, and it's the polarization is enormous. You've got people, they love him, and you've got people, they hate him. There are still a lot of people, they adore Obama. Obama is the best president that America's ever had. There's a lot of people, the majority of people, that they don't understand that we're in a war. We're in part 3 of the World War. This is part 3, and this is the definite end. This is the final battle. But it's a covert war, and it's under the surface. My own relatives and family. I can't explain that we're in a war, because war for them is bombs and boots on the ground and soldiers and bullets and tanks, and this is a total different war, and that makes it so difficult to explain to people that we're in a war, and the war is for the future of humanity. It's for our children, grandchildren, and even if you try to explain that I mean, eating babies is of course it's horrendous, but how do you present something so horrific to the public, like child trafficking, and the people that we've always worshipped and we've put on a pedestal, the royal families and the governments and the people in the entertainment business and people in Hollywood? How do you explain that they are pedophores? They're not pedophiles, but pedophores. They eat children and they drink blood. People, they call us crazy. It's difficult to get this message through to them, but it's got to go. It's got to happen organically, of course. But the people of the world will have to stand up, and it's a long, tiring process. I'm getting tired. I've had some health issues, of course. David's had health issues, as I know of, and the people, the truthers that are standing up. It takes, like I just said, it takes a lot of courage to talk about this and pump out the message. But we cannot say, "Oh, we're going to call it a day." You can't. It's like David talked about, and Ella. It's a mission, it's a mission for you. It's a mission for all of us. We can't just say, "Oh, we'll just stop," because they're not picking up. You've got to keep planting seeds. You've got to keep talking. You've got to keep. I think Patriot has mentioned this. I'd rather die standing than live in fear on my knees. And we've got to let go of this fear, first of all, and keep pushing out the message. But people will have to stand up. And before you get an individual to, rub the sleep out of their eyes and think, well, good God, there's something else going on. It's real. It's far more intense. And before you get the people to stand up, you've got to get an individual. So we were talking about this as well. I think it was Patriot as well. EBS could be. I think Mike King mentioned it as well today on his 9th or 10th batch. EBS. I think it will be necessary at a certain point to get it out, to get all the people to a certain level. To get the message through, like it's got to be a 9/11 event, something like that, that the whole world knows or sees it, and they talk about it. The engagement of the people, they've got to get engaged. They've got to get involved. It's if we were far further down the path than we are now, this whole operation would go far quicker. But the white hats are waiting for people to wake up and be aware of what's going on. That's why it's taken so long. So, yeah, you've got to do it organically. And maybe an EBS worldwide could get this going. Like the war, like David said, Russia liberating Europe. I hope so. The vodka's in the refrigerator. It's already nice and cold in the bottle. I mean, I would welcome them to. They could go all the way to Scheveningen. Scheveningen is the Dutch coast. I'd say, come on, Vladdy, and get the job done. But yeah, it's a long and winding road, really, and we've got to. There's something got to happen. I hope something like a Deus ex machina, the hand of God, will come and and speed this thing up. So that the normies can catch up. It's very important, this, because it's where we go on, we go all, eh?
Well, this is the big problem. Yeah. And Ella, when you look at this going on, and I hate using the phrase, but it's a very apropos phrase for where we are now. We, as patriots, globally as patriots, are out of the closet now. We don't have to sit in the corner and whisper about it. We've gotten enough momentum and enough people are aware of what's going on that we can speak freely about these types of problems. But we've also, and I guess I see it more because of my years in the business and my years dealing on the street one-on-one with the general public. And I've noticed that there are a lot of patriots who are aware of what's going on, but not. They're awake, but they're not. They understand that there are issues, but they still, I guess the best way to put it is they're still in MSM mode. And they're still waiting for that idiot in front of the camera to tell them what is, instead of going and doing their own research. It's right there, enabling them to get all the information they need and using their own human discernment to figure out what is and what isn't. So when you see that going on and you see the position that we're in now, where do you see it going?
Well, I think that it plays on very different levels at the same time. We have had the underground war, the shadow world that is taken care of, the world of the deep state, of the underground military bases, the dumps, the tunnels. Then there's also the consciousness of the people itself, because I think when you're talking about there's a war going on, there's really a war going on for the mind. And this is the biggest challenge, I think, right now, is that humanity has been subjected to mind control and suppressed for thousands of years that put us in a certain mindset that is very, very difficult to unwind. And it needs to be done in a way that people can understand, live through things themselves. And you can't overwhelm them, because then they can't process it. And so I can relate to what David said, that I've really, really delved into that whole trafficking issue, whatever happens with children. And I had the willingness to look evil in the eye. I wanted to know how evil really was. And up to this day, there are still things that I bump into that give me pause. And I know that there's no point in trying to tell everyone everything we know, because it's not going to help humanity going forward. They have to understand that there was a huge issue with children, that the abuse of children was the cement of the power structure, that it was used to control people, but also that in essence, it's a symbol almost for living in a parasitic society, where you suck out other people's life force for your own goodwill, for your as sort of a selfish interest. And the adrenochrome industry is one of the things that I find particularly difficult to deal with. And I think all of this has to come out to a certain extent, but the scale of this and the horror and the evil that is portrayed on humanity as a whole is so overwhelming that even if you just put 2% out and really, in a way that normies even take that in, that's already a lot. But I think there's another level that I don't really see it so much as the liberation from an outside force. Yes, of course, they need to level the playing field, deal with the cabal and deal with the underground world and the military industrial complex, because, there are things that they're beyond the control of humans. But the biggest battle is going to be to remember who we truly are, that we are divine creations, that we have free will, that we can create a society based on harmony and respect, and it doesn't have to be a religious thing, but if you want to use that as an example, Christian values, yes. And I think that is really why we need to put out what issues there are in the world, and it's not something outside of our society. This is something I want to emphasize. Stephen talked a little bit about the Kalergi plan, and yes, there are huge issues with that, and we have the grooming gangs in the UK, which is pretty horrific. But from what I researched in the Netherlands, the abuse of children and the whole satanic networks, it's very local. It is our own children. It's the perpetrators are within all ranks of society. And the higher you go up in society, the larger the chance that they're involved. Because at a certain level, you just have to be, you have to show your loyalty to the network. And that's another thing that people have to deal with, the deceit that has taken place. The people they looked up to, the authorities, that's the people in the suits on television telling them to do this, that, and the other. And, I can try to warn my family, like, oh, don't get the jab, and, don't believe the climate change this, and it doesn't matter. The mind control is so strong. The person on TV with their suits on is the experts. They're much more reliable. And people are going to find out that they've been on the wrong side of history.
Yeah.
And it's so much to take in that I think that I want to close off with, I think we need to learn to deal with all the emotions that it's going to trigger. And I think that the anger, that's very understandable, and maybe the feeling for revenge, or of course we're going to desire for justice, and justice needs to be served. But I think that we need to move towards compassion. And compassion is not the same as making it okay, or it's not a replacement of justice, but we've all played a part in this. And it's not as black and white as people like to believe, but I'm pretty convinced that every perpetrator in the system was a victim once in their life. And you can really go back to that 2-year-old that was, treated in a horrific way, and still feel compassion. So there's big challenges ahead of us. There's a lot to deal with. And I think the consciousness of the people, that's really going to take the lead. That's going to determine where this is going.
You brought up a very interesting point. I was going to go to another question, but I want to continue on this and just go kind of around the horn. We'll start with you, Maestro. But one of the first shows that I did regarding child trafficking was with Mary Flynn O'Neill and a woman by the name of Michelle Peterson. whose son, I should say, was the push to actually create a law in this country, the first law anti-grooming. Her son was being groomed by a coach at his high school, unbeknownst to her, but she happened to find all these text messages in his phone from the coach, thousands of messages, and pushed forward. They got him arrested and pushed forward to making a law that's now in several states and will eventually become a federal law. What is the situation? I mean, we know about the grooming gangs in London, but what exactly is the situation in Europe with grooming? Maestro first.
Well, I can't really give an answer to that, but you just mentioned law, Mark. And one of the biggest problems is the judicial system is corrupt and it's absolutely compromised. These people that, you know, you see now in America with the SCOTUS and other judicial organizations, these people are well into pedophilia and different nefarious, what do you call it? Practices, yeah. I was just going to find the word, but that's what we're battling against at the moment. And as long as we've got cases here in Netherlands, for instance, and Alistair knows it, and David knows it as well, of people that have come out and they've said, you know, I've been victim at a young age, and I'm getting a lot older now, but all these memories are coming back to me, and I can name names, I can name places, I can name experiences that I've had, and I know exactly who it is. And these people they're getting harassed, they're getting locked down, they're getting locked up, they're getting threatened by the same judicial system that is making laws. And it's a terrible battle. So it's not just a battle for the minds or what have you. It's as long as this judicial system is corrupt and compromised, it's nearly impossible to get righteousness and get people. The people that are getting punished are the ones that are standing up and saying, well, you know, this is going on. So they're terribly in panic at the moment. You can see that they are very afraid that this is coming out. So they're trying to do everything what they can I mean, grooming gangs like in England, people they get arrested, but after a few hours they're free again. I mean, it's absurd. People that if you don't pay your energy bills or your tax bills, you get locked up for a few years. and if you're into pedophilia, you're free after a few hours. It's unbelievable. It's just totally inverted. So it's a crazy world. But yeah, there's a lot of things that have got to change, Mark, before we get to the end of this whole. I'll call it a shit show, but it's worldwide, and the focus is also on Epstein Island, of course. But this goes far
back to that.
Yeah, this goes far deeper than child sacrifice. It's worldwide. I mean, there are a lot of Epstein Islands in the world, and that's got to be revealed as well. It's not just there in the Caribbean peninsula. There, it's all over the place, and we've only seen a tip of the iceberg. And if you look at the Epstein files, for instance, just to dive into that a bit further, I think this is only 2% what we've seen up to now. I mean, the real horrific stuff, they're going to leave that till the end. I mean, Q says 4 to 6% will never get it, and if all is revealed, 99% of people will end up in psychiatric care. So. And I think they're going to 40%. I think Q says 40%. It will not be revealed in our lifetime. It's like somebody said that I interviewed. I think it was Ricardo Boschi. The certain things that happen now, they will be revealed in the next generation when it's all said and done. Like, for instance, the assassination of JFK, if we believe he was assassinated. At that moment, on the 22nd of November in 1963, it was a shock that went through the world. But if you talk to people now, younger generation, oh, who was that, JFK? Oh, yeah, it doesn't bother them anymore. So I think things will be revealed down the line when we are dead and gone, so to speak. So there's a lot of things up to change, especially that judicial system. It's these people are the worst, I think.
Well, I think that's because they're directly involved.
Yeah.
And they know they have the goods on them too. And we're going to get to Epstein after this. But David, Belgium, grooming. What's the story there?
Yeah, before I answer your question, I would like to go deeper onto something that Ella said, because that was very profound, where she said that most of these people were victims at some point. And, I do believe it's important to keep a clear line between there are a lot of people who are just pure evil, who have not been victims. They get the opportunity to become evil and they just become evil. They get the opportunity, join in this child sacrifice and all the doors to power and wealth will swing open for you, like Ronald Bernard said. But it is also true that there's a lot of people who are evil because they've been destroyed as a child. And when Ella said this, I really had to think of a vision that a friend of mine had. And while he was praying, he suddenly, it was a dream that he had, a very vivid dream. And in the dream, he saw Ursula von der Leyen. And she was standing in front of Jesus. And she was acting so mean. And she was shouting in his face and hollering and screaming the worst insults into the face of Jesus. And the only response that Jesus had was, "But my God, who has hurt you so badly?" And the moment he said that, she just crumbled. And she just fell in his arms, crying and crying and crying and crying. And I believe that God is showing these kinds of things to exactly do what Ella said, to show us that God sees deeper. And again, there are people who are just really evil. But there are also people who have been abused. I mean, I have several personal letters from a lady who was born in these elites in Canada, in the Scottish Rites, Freemason. And she said that a child born in these elites is raped thousands of times by the time they're 18, and that they have been programmed through military programs. And we all know that the military is doing this, CIA, not all the military, but it are certain rogue divisions in the military that this lady herself, she was abused and raped to become an assassin. Well, often they are programmed in several personalities to be a psychic, so that they can be used to channel demons, who then give instructions to the elites and who give supernatural insights, which is one of their secret weapons. The psychic awareness that is activated when children are so traumatized that their spirit escapes. And then, I don't know exactly how it works, but and so she was programmed to also be an assassin, and she has murdered several people, and she said, "You have no recollection of that. You don't even know that you did it, because at night they send a message to you that activates this programming." Another personality comes up that was created during the rape and the trauma and the torture. And then the other personality starts doing things. And there are people in governments, there are people in the judiciary, there are people in the media that are not real people. I mean, they are real people, but the personality is a fictional, created, fake person, while the real person is so destroyed that he or she is in complete hiding. And that's why these people in power can do things without any remorse. They have no conscience. They have no soul. They don't feel. Yes, they mandate the jabs to millions of people, while, it will kill tens of thousands of mummies. It will murder tens of thousands of little babies. It will destroy beautiful families. It will flood the nation with pure horror, and they don't care one split second, because it's not them. They are not there.
No soul.
And this lady said that one of the reasons for constantly raping these children is so that their soul would be ripped out of their body. Mm-hmm. And then they have no ability anymore to love or experience love. And so it's indeed, it's a trauma-based operation. It's horrible. It's indescribably horrible. And I'm glad, Ella, that you brought that up, because it really touched me when my friend shared that to me. I mean, we can all be very, very upset with Ursula von der Leyen, but she's an example, apparently, of somebody who is not there. I mean, she was hurt so bad, and she operates out of anger, out of pain, out of trauma. And, and so I've been praying that there will be, that God will move amongst these elites to set them free, that they will wake up from the programming. But now, to answer your question, Mark, about Belgium, I don't know that much about Belgium. I did read an email just this morning from this person who was in contact with the White House operative, and he explained to me that the reason that the power structures are all in Brussels is because of spiritual things going on there. I mean, he said all of Belgium is basically one huge dump, an underground base. And what's happening there is indescribable. So, there's Belgium. The word Belgium comes from Baal, the land of Baal. And Baal is another word for Satan. So Belgium historically was a very diabolical nation, where it was literally dedicated to Baal, who is the one who demanded child sacrifice. But, but I believe that all the nations will be liberated. I believe that there's a beautiful future for Belgium, and that there will, Stephen, you said the judiciary is so corrupt, nothing can happen as long as the judiciary is corrupt. Well, that is why Q said the only way is the military.
Yeah.
That is why the military is arresting these people behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. That is why, and they cannot do this openly because the public has no way to understand this. I mean, I'm in California now. We moved from Colorado to California. I am shocked to see the ignorance of so many people. In Colorado, we lived in the mountains, secluded, peaceful. Now we live in San Diego, a huge mega city. I see so many people. And
how could you move to California, David?
Yeah, because
so
God
beautiful.
is sending us here. He
go to Florida.
Yeah. God told me that he's going to bring a very powerful spiritual awakening to California. That's why we're here. So, but I see so many people here that are so disconnected from reality.
Yeah.
They really think that Trump is evil, that ICE is bad. Every good thing that Trump is doing to liberate this world, to save the American people, to end all the raping and all the child trafficking and all the torture and all the poisoning and all the corruption, everything he does is always twisted by the mainstream news media. And all these people, they believe the media. So they're not necessarily evil. The media is evil. That's lying to them. And I am praying that God will do something and that Trump and the military are doing great in their field of specialty, military operations. But I have a feeling that they are not so good at reaching the public. They are good at the covert military operations, but what about the hundreds of millions of people in America that are victims of the mainstream news media? And why are they allowing the news media to have their way? There is a certain influence you can see now that the media is being forced to tell certain things, but it's going so slow. It's like a drop at a time. It's like a drop. And I'm like, guys, can't you just take out these news anchors and replace them? No, they can't, because the people would freak out already just by that. They have to do it apparently so super slow. But I find it frustrating.
That's why I mentioned the EBS, David. It's time for the EBS. Bring it on, bring it on.
Yeah, but I don't think that they can do the EBS because
the military.
The EBS would cause such panic and such disruption of society. I mean, I think that it's for a reason that Q is doing it so slow. I mean, they don't need the EBS. They can take out these people in the news media. They can use the news media.
Yeah, but you could. It's the certain level of the content of the EBS. What you're going to put in, what you're going to put into the mix. Are you going to put the satanic eat baby things into the mix, or are you going to make it like a light bouillon, a light soup?
That's true.
Get the people up to level. Like you said, it's so slow and it's taking so much time and it's tiring. It's tiring us. I mean. We are. I'm not going to say we are lonely. We're not lonely, but we are. Speaking out, we are quite isolated. I mean, you can't go in. You know what I mean. We all know what I mean. Isolation is. I'm waiting for the moment that there's people going to come up to me and say, "Well, I think we're right there. Tell me a bit more." And that's.
No, it is happening, Stephen.
It's happening already.
Yeah, we just rented a home here in San Diego, and the landowner, an elderly lady, she had looked me up and she has found stopwar.control.com, and she said, "I read all your reports. Wow, that's quite something. Is it really true about children and children being sacrificed?" And then she said, "I have a friend and she's into all of these conspiracy theories. But," and now it comes, she said, "but now they're turning out not to be conspiracy theories after all."
No, true.
And I was like, bam.
Yeah, that's
exactly what's going through the world now. It's not conspiracy theories after all.
And once you're awake, you never go back to sleep, huh?
Say again?
Before I
once
get
you're awake, you never go back to sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before I get to Ella's answer on this, two things. One thing that you brought up that I noticed in each one of these survivors that I've interviewed is it does pretty much so start in the family. Usually when there is child sexual abuse, child trafficking, et cetera, it usually does start in the family. There's always a family member, a parent, a relative who gets the ball rolling there. And that's part of the horror that these kids have to go through.
Or the children are just being kidnapped from their families by the government.
Some of them, yes. But some of them are being sold in by their own families.
Or the parish or the church as well. Church, don't forget the Roman Catholic Church.
We'll get into religion also. That's a whole other thing, the great divide. But also, when it comes to the media, one thing that I think a lot of people miss, it's a lot more than a drip now. Because if you look at a lot of the things that have come out and the manner in which they've come out, because don't forget, what the media did for decades was brainwash people. And the way that you brainwash people, especially after corporate America took over the media, you're on all day long, et cetera, et cetera. So what are you doing? Wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. It's the same thing over and over, and that's how you brainwash somebody. Well, now they're doing the same thing in reverse. And what they're doing, almost in a comedic way, is they're making things so pathetically stupid
Yeah.
that you have to look at some of these people. No offense, David, but you got to look at some of these people in California and say, how the hell do you not see this?
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
When you look at the Nancy Guthrie case, okay? Seriously, the FBI and everybody, and it's 6 days before they go and they check inside the house or they look at the Ring video door. It's stupid. And I always go back to the alleged Trump assassination, which could not have been a more poorly orchestrated sitcom, really.
Mark, the image of the bullet. The strike.
That was an absolute joke. I mean, look, I worked in the business 46 years. I don't care what kind of lens you've got. I don't care what kind of software you've got. You ain't slowing that down where you can see the bullet going past.
Yeah.
That's just not happening.
No.
But, all of these different things. So some people are getting it, and they're seeing how pathetically ridiculous these stories are getting.
Yeah.
And then others are still sitting there and going, oh, he just said it. It's got to be so.
Yeah.
And they're doing that with alternative media also. So it's a rough hoe, and we've still got a ways to go. But let's get to Ella on that. In the Netherlands, what do you see as far as child grooming is concerned?
Well, I want to answer sort of the question you posed to David, because it's all mixed. In Europe, I mean, you can imagine that child traffickers don't respect borders so much. But in the 90s, a serial killer and a serial rapist and child trafficker was caught by the name of Marc Dutroux. And David knows this very well. It almost tore apart Belgium because, the short story is he trafficked girls and provided them to the elite pedophile parties, and there were a lot of high-profile people involved, and also royals, and that part of the story was killed. That was put aside, and he was convicted eventually for, he had killed 4 women that were found buried in his backyard, and 2 girls were liberated that he had locked up in his basement. Well, there were some journalists that sort of delved into this story and another story of a German boy that was abducted from Berlin. That is also the story that has been told in the documentary Beneath the Surface. And it turns out that the Stasi, the secret service of Eastern Germany, was very much involved with child trafficking and sort of Epstein-like operations to set politicians and high-profile people, CEOs, judges, public prosecutors, to get them into compromising situations so they would be controllable and could be blackmailed. And that sort of ties into this Marc Dutroux figure, who was trafficking girls, the father of this alleged boy, who both worked for the Stasi, trafficked boys. And they continued after the wall of Berlin was torn down and Germany was reunited. There was no longer the need for Stasi, which had a really bad reputation, but they continued with their practice. So that is already another kind of Epstein-like network. And these children were trafficked, for instance, to the Netherlands, to child brothels, boys' brothels. And this has been exposed since the 90s. And there's been a lot of attempts by people to get people prosecuted because there was the highest person in the judicial system, the Secretary General of the Justice Department, was claimed to be involved, to be at the center of this. But he wasn't the only one that was named, but they tried 14 years to get him prosecuted.
Wow.
And a lot of people went to jail during this process, but they weren't perpetrators. You have to understand, these were the whistleblowers, the victims. A lot of victims, they are put into mental hospitals. You know, they're labeled as delusional. They have, you know, strange memories and strange ideas, and it's really, really hard to, you know, that's why I'm really, you know, I agree with the whole sentence that the military is the only way, because all the systems, all the institutes right now have been installed to protect the agenda of a very, very elite group. And maybe they will use the international court eventually. Maybe they will use the United Nations if it goes through a certain transition. They might even transform the SDG Sustainable Development Goals, because in essence, I mean, you can really sort of tweak it and turn it into something beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
So maybe this is the way that they're going to do it. But when it comes to the child trafficking, to go back to that, yeah, we have to really understand that this is a transgenerational issue. And a lot of people are born into these networks. I've been told that a lot of people want to step out, actually. They're desperate to step out, but they can't.
Yep.
Because even if they're willing to sacrifice their own life, you know, they would put the lives of their own children and their own family at risk.
Yep.
So it's a very, very difficult situation. And what David brought up, and I want to elaborate a little bit on that, if that's okay. You know, the fact that they subject people to this trauma-based mind control, and they use drugs and electroshocks and hypnosis and triggers, and so they deliberately fracture the mind. They deliberately create these alters, and it's called dissociative identity disorder. And survivors have told me that they didn't even know what they were doing during the night. There was a code that was relayed, and they could use a symbol or a tune or whatever was put in there during the mind control training, and they would switch to another personality.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these people that, you know, they could say, oh, I don't remember this, or like politicians, like, and they're lying through their teeth. Like, I don't have active memories of this. Well, Stephen knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. You know, maybe he doesn't.
Not lying. He's not lying for once. For once in his life, he's not lying.
You know, because that's another personality that was in charge. You know.
Yeah.
So
really weird.
Yeah.
Really weird. Yeah.
And I think, and in essence, you know, what the term satanic ritual abuse also relates to connecting themselves to another realm.
Yeah.
Another realm of demonic entities that they are the host of that, and they are taken over. And these demonic entities, they stay in their energy field, and somehow they can take over. So that's why maybe they can do these really inhumane things.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is also a spiritual battle in that respect, that it goes on many different levels. And when you think about it from that angle, you know, what is evil? What is the opposite of evil? It's life. In English, you even have the word mirrored, and it's love. So love and life is the antidote of what we don't want. So
Exactly.
you know, in essence, it can be really simple if we go back to these really, you know, higher values and you know, the things that we do naturally. You know, most humans are good people. I think most humans want to live in harmony and want to help others when they're in trouble. So we need to go back to that, and that means we need to get out of the survival mode of, you know, the society that is created to sort of keep us busy and keep us, you know, fighting for our survival. If we're liberated of that and we become human again, it's also in essence, it's really simple as well.
I have to repeat it in almost every show. There's a reason, and a very good reason, that's behind me. And the show is called Respect.
I think as well, Mark, demons and archons, I think we all experience it sometime in our lives at certain moments. It's recognizing it. It's recognizing that you are being attacked by these demons. That's most important. But the essence of everything is that these evil elites or evil people, they've taken us away from God. They've taken us away from Source. They've taken us away from the Creator. And their God is Satan, is Lucifer, and we are awaking now at an exponential pace. And we are like Ella mentioned at the beginning. It's realizing who you really are, where we come from, what is our purpose here in this lifetime. And they've done their utmost best to disconnect us from the Creator, from Source.
Yeah.
I mean, the idiot box, that's the devil, and they used to call that in the Netherlands and in England when the televisions first appeared in the living rooms. A lot of people called it the devil in the living room. They didn't want this idiot box because they could see all the vile stuff and all the lies that were just spilling out of the idiot box. And we also, Operation Mockingbird has been switched now. It's been flipped by the white hats. But that's what we've got to go back to the Creator, and that's the beautiful thing that we're seeing now is people are waking up, and people are they're lacking something, they're missing something. And what are we missing in life? It's the Creator. I mean, 5 years ago when I woke up, I was completely asleep before that, and my colleague, composer friend, woke me up to satanic ritual abuse. That he pushed me right down this rabbit hole, and I woke up. I was sick for a week when I saw these short clips and movies and all these links that he sent me. But that's when I realized humanity has been distancing from the Creator, from God, for a long time, and we're going to go back to because the Creator created all us humans in his image, and that's what we'll have to understand. So it's a beautiful process, really. Somehow, yeah.
So I gotta credit you guys, because with this roundtable going as it is, you keep derailing me from the questions I want to ask and bringing up some other. No, it's perfect, because facts being what they are, this is another thing that we were discussing earlier, which is when you think about how diabolical this whole plan really has been, and how to get us away from the Creator, to get us away, to break down the family unit, to take control of our most valuable asset, our children, in order to destroy society and create their new world order, their satanic new world order. And when you look at it and you go back and you think, and this is exactly the conversation that I had earlier, which was when you think about World War II, the war to end all wars and this and that and the other. And, everybody comes home and things are nice and peaceful, but they're not quite peaceful enough for the cabal because they're not making their money. So next thing we know, we're in Korea. Then after Korea, they harnessed all the policemen across the country and had that police action in Vietnam. It wasn't a war, it was police action. And then they go through that. But here we are in the 60s. Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants love. This and that and the other. Okay, how can we screw this up? It's a great idea. Let's have, riots and peace protests and introduce drugs and really get the kids off that way. Right as you come out of that, boom, we're off the gold standard. Once we're off the gold standard and you've got nothing but monopoly money, everything spikes. Drug abuse, rapes, murders, everything is just off the charts. And it went crazy from that point. And now they're not having their wars, but they're getting control of the people. Because now that they're printing funny money, inflation is up, the women got their liberation, but now they've got to go. They don't want to go to work, they have to go to work. It no longer takes just one person to raise a family, it takes two. And now they're gone. Who's raising the kids? And it's not like when I grew up, where basically your grandparents were there in the house, so you had somebody to come home to, but now you've got nobody. Then they developed the Department of Education, and they start putting out their agenda in the schools. Yep. So they're putting all this stuff in the kids' minds, and the kids are going home to nobody. Mm-hmm. Then they come out with these, and the ultimate control comes in. And they've gotten us so far away from the divine, and so far away from the respect and the decency that makes us a culture, that they can do whatever they want. And that's the whole plan. And religion was one of the things that absolutely contributed to that. Because what are religious organizations? They are control organizations. If they don't hold on to their flock, their business is gone. So all of these control mechanisms that were put in and only exacerbated by the mainstream media, by that idiot box, by the boob tube, by that devil in the living room. Mm-hmm. These are all things that just led to the point that we're at, where we've lost control, but we've also lost the will and created the apathy that has gotten us where we are now. So let's do a little free for all on that one. Anybody wants to chime in first?
Well, I've said repeatedly on my platform that in order to accomplish the agenda, or attempt to accomplish the agenda that they had, they indeed first had to end what was previous before that. And if you look at world history, then 2000 years ago, taking that the historic timeline is somewhat accurate, which also has its questions, but around the time when Christ came in our world, every culture on the face of the earth was so indescribably horrific. The situation on earth was 1,000 times worse than now. It was so bad, we can't even imagine that. In the Middle East, for example, and this happened in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in the Americas, everywhere. So I'm just giving an example. But in Middle East, they, for example, had the teraphim. What is a teraphim? It was a public cultural habit to sacrifice one of your children to the demon god, and then chop off its head, preserve the head, use it in certain rituals, and then put the head of your own murdered child in your house. They put something under the tongue with occult inscriptions on it. And then demons spoke through that head and gave the family answers, instructions, directions. This was normal cultural habit. In the Roman Empire, which was supposedly the most civilized empire or the most civilized culture in the whole world, every wealthy family had several sex slaves for themselves, and they had special sex slaves for their guests. So we only hear about slavery, yeah, they had to work hard, poor guys. No, that was only part of it. The worst was that they were being used for sex. There were public parades where people were put on carts, on chariots, on mobile platforms, where they were being raped by animals as a display for the public. These are just a few examples. Also in the Roman and the Greek cultures, they had these so-called orgies. Well, we know from the comic books, from Asterix, we see these fat, wealthy people eating and drinking. No, it was nothing like that. They invited demons. They got so demon-possessed that they started killing each other, raping each other. The orgies of the elites were so indescribably horrific that even the historians said that they couldn't find words to describe it. So when Christ came, he came in a world that was satanic to a degree that we can't even begin to imagine. Then he sent out his first missionaries. He didn't send them to start a religion. He sent them as warriors to end the rule of Satan, the rule of this intense darkness. The way they transformed the earth is, we haven't got the slightest idea about that. They ended all of these horrors. They ended the public. I mean, we're talking about now about child trafficking. Now it's being done behind the scenes. It used to be done in public. It used to be accepted by every culture. Thousands upon thousands of children in South America were sacrificed publicly to the demon gods. I mean, graves of thousands of children have been found from the Indians, So those first messengers of Christ, they changed all of that. And so at some point, the elites, they wanted to reverse everything. And I'm explaining a lot more about this in my upcoming book that's on the website, The Return to Christ. But they had an agenda to reverse it. And the very first thing they had to do was erase history. They had to eliminate how these messengers of Christ have completely transformed the whole world, to the point that people can now live safe in their cities. I mean, if you look 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, then you can see very clearly that the world was incredibly well. People were very happy families, beautiful cities, beautiful architecture, But then around the 1800s, something happened that the Bible describes as Satan was released again from his dungeon where he had been bound for 1,000 years. But what you then see is that the first thing that they started doing was push atheism, where the whole Western world had become so transformed that you had a church on every corner of every street. And a lot of it was religion, which was infiltrated, which was influenced, which wasn't always good. But What was good is that everybody knew there is a God of love, and he teaches us to love each other, which was the exact opposite of what their ancestors had been raised by. We have to worship these gods in the plural by sacrificing our children. And we have to do all these rituals, you know. So an incredible transformation had occurred. But when the elite said, okay, now it's our turn again, the first thing they did was push atheism. And when I say the elites, it were, you know, it were Jews. The Jews who were always the enemies of Christ, who killed the Christians, they are the ones who also said, now we are going to rule the world. Now we are going to have it our way, you know. And so it's so true that we have to return to God. We have to return not to a religion. Christ never came to establish a religion. He came to abolish the rule of Satan, darkness, evil, horror, terror, torture. He came to bring love. He came to bring life. And he confronted the religious leaders. He said, you guys are the offspring of the devil. I mean, that's quite a thing to say against the religious leaders. But I believe that in America, you're seeing it big time right now, and actually all around the world. I mean, Iran. I'm good friends with a professor of theology whose book has been translated in the language of the Iraqi people, the Iran people. I don't know what the language is, sorry. But she says that indescribable number of people are returning to Christ in Iran. Iran, which had been seized by Islam. Islam is just another version of Satanism. I mean, Islam has these rituals where children are being raped by multiple men as part of their transition into adulthood. Can you imagine how horrible that is? But I believe that the power of the human being is when we are sincerely, truly connected to the Creator. So they first had to sever that umbilical cord, and that's what they did. And then they started the mind control and the brainwashing and all the rest. And so now that we are seeing that it's being reversed again, we see that people are massively awakening also to the source of life and saying, this is not about religion. This is about going back to He who gives us life, He who is life, you know? Yeah.
Well said, David. Well said.
Well, do either one of you want to carry further on that?
Well, I think the whole aspect of the history that's been hidden from us, that is a really, really an important aspect, because David refers to it in his story, but I think history goes a long way back, and I think that there was a time where people lived on the earth where they got it. They lived peacefully, and you know, just the myths of Atlantis and Lemuria were probably not myths, but actual stories that were, you know, carried on by the people that came afterwards. And there's so much hidden, not just about our own history and the history of the earth, which is also a consciousness, the way I look at it, but also about other civilizations in other dimensions, the inner earth, in the galactic realms. And I think we can learn a lot from that information. I think information is really key, and also not just information, but really opening up to a wider perspective, because what the elites try to do is narrow us down, and then have us look through this really narrow lens. And the moment you do the reverse and you open up and you open up and you open up, you start to imagine that other possibilities are possible. I mean, you talk to normies about, my idealistic worldview of how things can be in the near future. They think, oh, you're crazy, you're too idealistic. That can never happen. The system we have right now, that's the ultimate system. But it's not. And I think we are about to find out, and I don't know how long that's going to take, but that we create the world, that we are the creator of this world. And how does that start? It starts with imagination, imagining how magnificent it can be.
Yeah.
And people they can't even do that anymore. And this is something very positive, that we can accelerate that, and we can inspire people. That I don't know. I feel I have memories of having lived in a world where people got it, where people lived in harmony. And there must be a reason why we were born in this time, in our role to do what we do. Because we need to take another path and really start creating the paradise that it can be here on Earth, because it's a beautiful planet. And there's so much in stock. There's so much possible, but start opening up to all possibilities. And that's something that I would like to inspire people with.
Yeah, we've all been dumbed down and demoralized and made docile from the first years that we went to the kindergarten, and that's where it starts. They don't want creative children, but children, newborn babies, are so close to the source. And you can also see that when they're lying there, and you've put them in the cradle, and you just peek through the door and you see them giggling and smiling and laughing at what are they laughing at? There's something they can still see, and we can't. It's been taken. We've been deprived of it, and that's so beautiful to see. So I think we're going, like Alice said, I think we're going to see a future that we as humans will still be able to connect and communicate with the source, like newborn babies do. And that's the divine life source that these elites are thriving on, is the life source that these newborn babies still have. And that's what they need to survive. But visualizing, of course, is and using our imaginations, as we can do as creative beings. But we can also manifest, and being able to manifest is, it's been ridiculed. We can still manifest if we want, and think positive. It's all new age, think positive and all this, but there's a certain nucleus that's still there. So if we think in possibilities, I think there's a lot coming down the road. There's beautiful things going to happen. Yeah,
and that's exactly one of the main messages that I have been receiving the past years after, exploring a lot of the evil and exposing it. Mm-hmm. I felt that all of a sudden something shifted, and I started having dreams about the future. And I saw schools that were so different, where children were, for example, they were swimming in a huge pond in the middle of the city, surrounded by beautiful nature. And the teacher was teaching them the alphabet, not in the classroom, not with a screen. No, the teacher was shouting while she was swimming, A from apple. And all the kids in the pond shouted back, A for apple. And then the teacher shouted, B for bear. And all the kids playfully shouted back, B for bear. And so they were having fun. They were playing outside in nature. And I saw that there was a terrace near that pond where grandparents were sitting and parents, and they were part of the class. They were enjoying what was going on. And I believe that I was shown a glimpse of how it's going to be. And I was riding my bicycle in a city, and in an old medieval city somewhere in Germany. And I usually don't like those dark cities, but this city was so full of light, and I saw fruit trees everywhere. Not just trees, not just green, but fruit-bearing plants and trees in the city that were attracting a lot of butterflies, birds, bees, and they created a whole atmosphere of life in the city. And then I was riding my bicycle in that dream to a suburb, and I saw that all the shrubs, that the amount of green was way more than you have now in suburbs and all these communities. But it was also all fruit bearing. And what I saw is that the people from the houses were tending to the green themselves. It wasn't like a city thing. The people themselves were, the whole city was like alive.
Vibrant.
And people were a lot outside tending to all the gardens, and they interacted a lot with each other as a result of that. And these were like very simple strategies that I saw. And then I saw a food store, and I was walking in the food store, and people, it was like a path where people could pick their own vegetables from the plants that were being grown right there. So, everything I saw in these dreams was, there was no more this strict separation with you're the customer or you're the student and you sit in that box, you take it from that rack and you pay there. No, everything was integrated. Everything was like people were doing, it was life everywhere, interaction with each other, interaction with nature. And and it was so beautiful to see that. So I believe, Ella and Stephen, that you guys are completely right when you say that it's time to start dreaming. It's time to start imagining. It's time to start fantasizing about what will this. I felt God ask me, David, can you imagine what will happen in the world once I have removed all these satanic elites? Once this dark, suffocating cloud is lifted. Start fantasizing about what is possible then. It's like, wow. And it's hard at the beginning because you're not used to that. It's like, but that's ridiculous. This evil has always been here. But no, dare to imagine what is possible in terms of healthcare. What is possible? I saw this kind of, vision of a hospital, but it was like a health center where people want to go to because it's so wonderful. It's a place where they receive emotional healing, counseling, emotional healing. They receive the most delicious, healthy diet imaginable. Every technology that can help them is there. It's not these huge concrete blocks, but it was like a huge park where the patients walk and they rest and they enjoy and just being there, and there was prayer and this health community center was completely funded by the local town. It was like people all contributed to it because they had this mindset of we care for each other together.
Sharing.
It's not a private corporation for profit. It's not a government institution. It was a community thing. And people almost longed to get sick because then they could go to paradise for a couple of weeks, But these were just things that I started seeing once God said, start dreaming what's possible. And I think that when every good person in the world starts doing that, and we have good elections where righteous, just people finally get into office, I think that's really quick, we can see dramatic changes pop up.
Yeah, the human mind is a cage. Yeah? It's a prison at the moment. Huh?
Yeah, it has to be unlocked.
That's it.
No more negativity, no more limitations, but start to
Exactly.
dream big.
Well, this is why the cabal did what they did. I have to look at things from the point of view of here in America. But this is why, when I grew up, you had what they called phys ed, physical education. And you would have your gym class. Every day you'd have to do, rope climbing, running, this, that. You got a chance to release that energy. You got to build your body. You got to inhale more oxygen. They put out water restrictions so that you could have a beautiful lawn, you could have beautiful shrubs, but you can't water them, so they die. What does the greenery do? It gives us oxygen. We need oxygen.
Yeah.
Okay. They take away, and this is something with all the things that I knew, I didn't know until a couple of weeks ago, talking to Kathy O'Brien. Now they've stopped teaching cursive writing in schools. The key to most of these survivors, and Kathy teaches this, is the act of writing out the bad things that happen to you. If you
Really?
can't write, you can't believe that. So
that's why everything is digital, Mark, because they can erase it very quickly. But diaries, who writes a diary nowadays? I mean, you was just talking about physical training, and there weren't any obese people in the 70s. We've seen clips and images of beaches in the 1970s. They were all fit. There was not a fat person walking around.
Nope.
And they've poisoned us with the food, and they've got us sitting on our asses all day behind the laptop and not moving around. So we're getting ill, we're getting sick, and the big pharma, they're earning a lot of money on sick people because healthy humans are a bad client for big pharma. So it all ties up. So how great would it be if we have pure nutrition, pure skies with pure air and pure clean water and what have you? We'll be healthy again. We won't need a big pharma. We can go back to nature.
Healthy food. Wow.
I mean, yeah, and
affordable that everybody can buy.
Cannabis is a key point. Okay.
Cannabis is it's so powerful, not just to be healthy, but hemp. If you look at hemp, it was used. You can yield it twice a year. You can make anything out of hemp. You can solve all the world's problems, but it's forbidden. Why? Because it's beneficial for the human being, and for the world. So it's
hemp.
This is what
you talked about having a diary. I picked up this notebook a couple months ago, and at night I started making a calligraphy.
Wow!
Basically, to encourage myself and to just inspire myself, and also write down things that I feel that God is telling me. So when I picked up calligraphy, learning to write beautifully, and the whole book is filled already, and so just as an illustration of what you say, Steve, writing, or Mark said that, cursive writing, to express your thoughts, your feelings, and in the past, these monks created these beautiful books with illustrations and with lettering, and everything was so meticulous. Everything was focused to be as beautiful as possible.
It took time as well to create it. It took time. People had the time then. They didn't have to rush to work and pay taxes and what have you, and rush to bring the kids to the school and what have you. They had time to live their lives and do things that made them happy
Yeah, one of the things I believe needs to happen is to eliminate the global corporations that think they have to provide food for everyone.
Yeah.
What nonsense. They can't do that. And because they can't do it, they're also not able to do it. All they can do is give people poison, industrial, cheap, toxic waste that they provide as food.
But you see, you brought up
Once the food goes back to the local communities, that every community has their own gardens, they have their local farmers, not like the optional farmers market here and there, but where people live together again. No one man who controls millions of people. No, the community is there for each other. I think that is where humanity will ultimately will go back to.
But
Do you know,
brought up
Mark?
the actual point. And the point is, and it's part of their plan. Okay, when you talk about the obesity and you talk about the garbage that we eat, which is what leads to the obesity, the key factor in that is what they did in order to break down the family unit.
Yeah.
When two people are at work and they're two people are struggling.
And two people are paying taxes as well.
Yeah. And struggling to make ends meet. What kind of food are you going to buy? What kind of food are you going to buy?
My camera battery is dead.
Oh my God.
It gives you a real
But
warning,
I ordered the battery with the cable, but it's arriving in a few hours.
I've got a picture of you, David. I'll just put it up.
Okay, yeah. Well, but I have to log off anyway. So talking about family, my kids are waiting for me to go out in nature to explore some nature preserves. So, thank you very, very much for having me, and I will let you guys finish the conversation.
Thank you. We'll miss you.
Yeah, thank you, David. Have a nice
David.
day.
Take care.
Enjoy.
But one of the key elements here is the fact, again, going back to the family unit and I won't call it poverty, but borderline poverty. So you can only eat what you can afford to eat.
Yeah.
And that is usually food of its worst kind.
If you look, David, at if you look at the COVID era, 5 years ago, the 5-star restaurants were closed, but you could go to McDonald's; they were all open, so you could eat that trash, that junk food. But real food in a real restaurant, that was forbidden, eh?
Well, it was also amazing how you could walk into a restaurant. You had to wear the mask, but as soon as you sat down at the table, you didn't have to wear the mask anymore. COVID evidently didn't sink down that far. Or when you got up to go to the bathroom or to leave, you had to put that mask back on again.
Yeah.
So the things that people fell for.
And you had to test yourself to see if you had the killer virus as well. You had to push this swab up your nose to see if you had the killer virus.
Until it comes out your ear. Absolutely pathetic. Well, because we're closing in on 2 hours here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the full question, but I'm going to make it a combo. Because we didn't touch on the 800-pound elephant in the room, which is, of course, Epstein. Now, with the release of the files, et cetera, which was beautifully done. And it was so, again, you talk about something that's blatantly obvious with the administration and the military saying, be careful what you ask for, you just may get it. But the people, which they knew they were going to do, insisted and said, he's not releasing it because he's in the files, and it's not, and the others have finally released it. And now they're learning all these things that they did not want to hear and did not want to know.
Brilliant.
The part of the question that I'm going to put out there, and I've already gotten in trouble a couple of times for this, but I think it's a great question. I'm going to put it out again. Talk about Epstein and talk about the release of the files and how important it is to end child trafficking. But I want you to also look at it from the point of view of the possibility. I'm not saying the probability, but the possibility that Epstein, in spite of the things that he did and had to do, could have been a white hat operative, because you have to the undercover cop has to play like he's part of the drug cartel in order to get in with them and get the information that they need. Somebody had to set these elites up in that honeypot scheme and do evil things in order to catch them. What do you guys think about that? Ladies first.
Well, it's a great question, and obviously I don't have the answer to whether Epstein was such a person or not. I find it hard to if you look at his character, find it kind of hard that he was an actual white hat. But you're touching upon something that I've raised, and I've raised that in combination to other people's names and got myself into trouble, because whether you're a MAGA or you're anti-Trump or wherever you stand, people need their heroes. And I think it's a bit tricky to sort of have your heroes and to get too much attached to it, or to think about people in a black and white fashion, because I think in reality, things are not as black and white. And if you sort of delve into the plan that sort of emerged in the 50s, the Q plan, when, you know, the basis was, the foundation was created, and then really worked out after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Part of that plan has always been to infiltrate from within, to put good people in really bad situations. And Ricardo Bossi has said this numerous times, like, going undercover is a dirty business because you have to do dirty things with dirty people to make yourself, you know, be trustworthy.
Yeah.
And we all know what it means to be trustworthy in the networks. I mean, you don't have to make yourself any illusions that you have to participate in the worst things. And there's people that discard this idea that the heroes that, you know, push forward this plan could have been going that far. But if you zoom out, and I always like to zoom out and zoom out and zoom out, what was needed was that something had to be done to save humanity from their own destruction, from their own extermination. And this evil was so penetrated in all the networks and institutions, and it was really, really difficult to battle. And this was the only way that they could pull this off. And I think if you start to look at people in a too much black and white fashion, they're either good or they're bad. Well, most people are sort of in between. But we have to realize that sometimes people had to do bad things in order for something good to emerge. And also, people were sometimes in a really bad situation, did bad things with bad people, and something happened to them, and they decided to change their lives.
We have an example.
And we have to, we have to allow this to happen and not think too much in this black and white way. But I think it's a beautiful question, and you know, in whether Epstein was as a white hat or a black hat, in the end, we can maybe say he did a service because he exposed something that had to be exposed. So, yeah. Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, well, the thought of Epstein, I wouldn't say directly a white hat, maybe a grey hat, has crossed my mind in the past. We know Trump has been an FBI agent as well, like Elvis has been an FBI agent, and yeah, we know Epstein could have been the Piper of Hamelin, to get all these rotten, the people that, yeah, I mean, they had. We've discussed people growing up in this environment, and they've been groomed. But people also have a choice of will. They have a freedom of choice to do what they want to do. And I think many people, we've seen so many lists. I can't confirm that all these lists are legit, but we've seen a lot of names, entertainment, Hollywood, politicians, monarchs, and what have you, on these lists. There might have been plans put in there, to learn more in, but every antagonist needs a protagonist, of course. But the Pied Piper theory of Epstein, especially getting to Ghislaine Maxwell, she's Mossad, of course, and her father was a full-blown Zionist, of course. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's. I mean, Epstein is the keystone. We've heard that often enough, that Epstein was the keystone. But this is far bigger than we can comprehend or fathom, and I think we're in for a lot of surprises. Even we think we know it all, but I think we're going to be very surprised at how this thing unfolds. And I think a lot of people that we think are black hats now or bad guys will turn out to be good guys, and good guys or girls, they will turn out to be the bad ones. So, like Ella said, there's a lot of people in the grey middle field, as if you can put it that way, black and white. There's a lot of grey. So there's also people shifting. They're getting the choice. They've been caught and they've been given the choice. Are you going to work for us? Of course, people that have done terrible things to children, that will not be negotiable, I don't think. And especially things to do with election steal and interference. That's high treason, and there's only one punishment for that, and that's death penalty. So it's going to be a very, very exciting final. I think we're in the final stages now, of course. I think 2026 is going to be the year that we're going to see a lot being revealed. A lot of things are going to change. There's going to be a lot of very difficult times. We are the chosen ones, the ones that are awake to a certain extent. We are the ones that have are going to lead and take the other people by the hand and take them to the other side. So it's answer to your question, Mark, about Epstein. It's like Alice said. It's very difficult to take a stand and say, oh, I'm convinced of this, of that. It can go it can go so many different ways. So it's an exciting movie, and we're in the final stages.
No, I'm very curious to see, because that was one of the things that led me to that question, to that thought process, because it's been flat out stated. I forget if it's in a Q post or not, but it was flat out stated, I know, by the president. When this is over, people that you thought were the bad guys may turn out to be the good guys, and the people you thought were the good guys may turn out to be the bad guys.
Yeah.
So, and that's in every single walk of life. That's your politicians. That's these heroes that you look up to in the media and in sports and Hollywood and everything else. So
we're the good guys, Mark. We are the good guys.
You know what? And I've said it before on the air, and I've said it to other people, we are doing God's work.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no doubt. I've never been really a religious person, but I've been a spiritual person. And this journey has proven to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that God's hand has been in it because I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have met the people that I've met. I wouldn't have dealt with the people that I've dealt with. I, I've been a songwriter most of my life, but I never, ever, ever would have come up with something like this to put out there, and to put out there for the reason that I put it out there.
Yeah.
So we're all doing, and this is the part that gets me going with a lot of people in the movement. When I say you've got to get off your butt and do something, everybody has something that they can contribute.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to cost you a cent, not 1 cent.
Just use your imagination.
Exactly.
Yes. And maybe one of the things that we need to learn from this whole operation and deception is that ultimately we should stop looking up to other people and putting other people on a pedestal and making them the hero like we've done with Hollywood. And because we need to become our own heroes again, and not externally, but more internally, try activate that hero inside, and each of us need to do that.
Absolutely, because what we've been doing all along, very, very simply, without most people realizing it, we have been worshiping false idols.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Simple as that. So we have to get past that and become our own idols, get away from selfishness and get to selflessness.
Reality, and leave the fakeism, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I got to tell you, this has been great. It's been an honor getting to, away from selfishness and to selflessness. I want to put that up for everybody to see. You all are used to it now.
Yeah.
If you want to get a copy of Who Saves the Children, you can email me at fakenews7ny54@protonmail.com. And all you got to do, none of this goes to me. None of this goes to anybody except to one of these 4 charities. Cost you as much as you want it to, or as little as you want. But if you donate $5 to any one of those 4 charities, and I picked those 4 charities because I know what they're doing, I know what they stand for, and they all stand for taking care of the children. So whether you do it with, ARC, the ARC training, because that helps to fund the people who are going to recognize, recover, and rehabilitate these kids, donate it to that. Shared Hope International, you could become a Shared Hope ambassador. Costs you nothing to take the course. More to Living, and of course America's Future, which is set up by one and only General Flynn to begin with. So any one of those ways you can get involved and support the idea of saving these kids, because they do indeed need to be saved. We have to, and we are the ones who need to save them. So above and beyond that, and of course, I cannot possibly do this show without turning around and thanking Claudia, Kat, Kerry, and Doug, because without them, we're just 3 people, or a little bit earlier, 4 people sitting talking to each other. So they're the best in the business, and love them. And I'm glad that they're helping me out every single week.
True patriots as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because for most of us, you got to realize we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts. We're not making a penny here doing this. So, and neither do our mods. So when you deal with the mods, I'm not going to name any names, but because there are bad people everywhere, but when you deal with the mods, treat them with respect, because they're there to help you. They're there to help us. And they're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts also. So the best in the world. Stephen, Ella, I want to thank you both. It's been a great show. David, I hope you're having fun with the kids. Also, thank you for being here with us. And once again, we will go out with Who Saves the Children. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks for the invitation, Mark. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Ella.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Children are the center of our world, and we do our best to show them that we care. But evil is lurking everywhere to steal their youth, kill their soul, show them things that they should never know. We live in the craziest of times, you never know what